The Art of Critical Pedagogy, Possibilities for Moving from Theory to Practice in Urban Schools by Jeffrey Duncan Andrade and Ernest Morel. This is a literature review by Kathleen Walsh, Linda Cortez, and myself, Stacy Lee. As and after we read this book, we had a few lively conversations about the concept of taking this theory and applying it to an urban setting. First of all, the three of us come from very different backgrounds of sorts, in that Kathleen is our tactile-type STEM person, and Linda is our business-minded person, and I come from an urban upbringing with various irons in the fire. However, although it seemed at first that we had very different ideas, as we began to converse, it seemed to converge toward the same ideal. We all wanted to take the best of ourselves and develop it through this theory of critical pedagogy. We knew that we each had something to offer in this literature circle and our future plans to work with students. The book had a very large foundation based upon Paulo Friere, a Brazilian educator who wrote the book Pedagogy of the Oppressed, published in 1970. Mr. Friere also seemed to indisputably be the creator of critical pedagogy. Others are mentioned in the book, like Carter G. Woodson, Lolita Lebron, France Fanon, Reyes Tejerina, Audre Lorde, Gloria Anzaldúa, and Subcomandante Marcos, all of which made contributions to this concept, yet not known for such work. Friere imagined education as a tool for eliminating oppressive relationships and students as social agents working on complex problems. The goal of Friere's model was to achieve a fuller humanity to produce a more just society. Friere's idea of critical pedagogy has 5 stages. 1. To identify the problem. 2. To analyze the problem. 3. To create a plan of action to address the problem. 4. To implement the plan of action. And 5. To analyze and evaluate the action. Together, these should form the praxis, which is the taking of action and the reflection upon that action thereafter. This forms a continuous cycle of theory, action, and reflection. This makes for a continuous commitment to not only addressing the issue, but continuously working on it. There should be no ending. There is an infinite amount of pedagogical training committed to creating this praxis. What is critical pedagogy used for? A major portion of this book is about an examination of actual practices of critical pedagogy with urban youth to answer the following questions. What tensions were discovered in trying to enact critical practice in traditional institutionalized settings? How can educators encourage students to disrupt oppressive structures while simultaneously helping them navigate them successfully? What tensions emerged surrounding the role of urban teachers in enacting critical pedagogy in the current standards-driven climate? There are 3 projects in this book that the author speaks about where this practice was implemented, all in California, all in an urban setting of some kind, but each conceptually different to study the praxis in action, such that reflection could reveal documentation and subsequent ideas to continue on with the process. The concept of praxis was implemented through these 3 projects, and critical pedagogy was explored. What was key was the pedagogical intervention, the identification and the documentation of the core realities of teaching urban youth. The ultimate goal is to be able to duplicate these teachings and to utilize this documentation and experience to inspire, motivate, and encourage educators with these 3 examples. The goal is to increase literacy through the implementation of critical pedagogy. Critical education for these students would be: students are directed to question dominant ideas and form their own understanding of what they learn based on their own experience and views, outside of what others have said something should mean. Teachers should ask students questions to find out what matters to them. Pedagogical intervention is a method by which there will be a cultural response to teaching, which should be transformative. Here are 3 cases, as highlighted in this book, demonstrating the art of critical pedagogy and its success. East Bay High School, a critical pedagogy experiment in an urban high school English classroom. A social action magazine project that arose organically from student empowerment resulted in completion of superior academic work. East Bay High School, what a coach can teach a teacher. In this case, the use of sports to bridge theory into practice was utilized. An educator needs to develop a vehicle to engage students in order to deliver the tenets of critical pedagogy. In this case, it was the Lady Wildcat basketball program, which developed a counter-narrative to urban school failure. If it worked here, it could work in other urban school programs and schools. Then there was South City High School, in addition to a major university, which culminated into a college access project for students of color, a 4-year intervention for a group of at-risk students through their social studies classes and a summer seminar each year. The essence of critical pedagogy is basically the teaching strategy taught to educators to address the needs of urban students, non-white or Asian students, students of color. Why? Well, when teaching a non-white, Asian, or student of color, there is a specific need, a specific sensitivity necessary to the differences of culture, norms, diversity, lack of resources, social and educational inequities, etc., that must be acknowledged. We have come to terms with the fact that there is a difference in teaching white students and urban students in order to address the deficiency in literacy skills. There should be a plan. Friere suggests teaching for social justice, academically rigorous teaching, and an infinite amount of teacher education in order to produce critical educators due to ever-changing experiences of urban, racially, and ethnically marginalized youth. The key principles addressed in the book were identification of the pedagogy's delivery, critical counterculture, and production of spaces that allow for youth self-reflection and application of learning that makes a difference in their lives. Some of the issues that arise are models that did not and are not working, like the banking model, where the teacher simply deposits information into the students, or the resource-based model, or even the multicultural model, for example. The multicultural paradigm fails to create spaces for a more critical and democratic exchange of ideas by failing to examine unequal power relations and social stratifications. In order for students to grow and become confident to lead and to live their lives in the future, it is not about the facts and information and skills they passively learn in schools, but in knowing themselves and figuring out how they want to live and which values they want to pursue in their lives. In this aspect, our educational system has failed our students in many ways. The nation tolerates academic failure of poor, non-white students and unequal access to properly funded public education. Most people believe the fallacy that schools function as sites of social mobility. We have locked this unjust paradigm in place through the standards-based system that blames the victim. Urban schools are doing precisely what they were designed to do: keep urban students permanently in an underclass. The big issues like schooling inequities, tracking teacher preparation in order to produce this critical literacy needed, underqualified teachers in this area of thought, teacher shortages, and funding inequities have to be addressed in a more productive manner. Pan-ethnic studies is an idea thought to make the connections real in American schools, a way to assuage academic failure, educational and race inequities. Another very key element in making a connection is the teacher's ability to explain to their students why this should matter in their lives. There has to be a real connection in order for students to buy in, engage, and/or invest in the process. So teachers have to jump in and really learn their students, their culture, their history, their language, etc., in order to show their students that they truly care and that trust is warranted. As with any theory, there is discussions, implications, limitations, and of course directions. As with any theory, there are also critics. Two critics in particular, Ravitch and Delpit. Ravitch, from this conservative right to self-proclaimed radicals, critical pedagogues have been derided for being overly idealistic and theoretical. Delpit claims that it is racist to not teach students of color the skills that they need to get into and succeed in college. Open and progressive education that does not teach students how to write a sentence. Also, students will not be able to enter the mainstream of society without learning to read, write, or speak standard English. We realized as a group that perspective was also key in producing this praxis. We have to remember we are only one person as we walk into our classrooms and approach 20 more or less students. We are looking at many different life experiences. We have to learn many different angles where our students only see, perceive, and have to learn or see just one. We have to be as much of a sponge as we expect our students to be. Learning together, talking to each other, and sharing our experiences and perspectives felt like this concept coming alive. We learned from each other and developed a solidarity and bond, one that will help us grow. This is exactly what we learned to do through the help of this book. Here are a few video examples that you can click on that are very compelling, and Strawberry Mansion, one of the worst schools in America, is happening right here in Philadelphia. Our literature circle roles were questioner, summarizer, and connector.